Hello, Traeger. It's Mrs. G, and I'm here to talk about our Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a special day when we celebrate the life and accomplishments of a great leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He played a crucial role in the civil rights movement, striving for equality and fairness for all people, regardless of their skin color. This day reminds us to be kind to one another, treat everyone with respect, and work together to make the world a better and more just place. Every year, I read a story to help us think about what we can do to support Dr. King's legacy. My story this year is entitled Noodle Font. Listen to find out how Noodle Font stands against injustice. Noodle Font by Jacob Kramer and K. Phi Steele. Once there was an elephant who loved noodles. She loved noodles so much that all her friends called her Noodle Font. She loved to scoop noodles into huge slippery slurps and eat them by the trunkload. She had neighbors of all sorts. Some had fur, some were smooth, some could roll, and some could fly. And some had deep pockets and were very, very bossy. Those were the kangaroos. The kangaroos were always making new laws. They made laws about who could swim at the beach, only kangaroos, who could enjoy the butterfly garden, only kangaroos, and who could make laws, only kangaroos. Noodlefont and her friends knew the laws weren't fair, but they didn't want to get thrown in the zoo. So instead of swimming at the beach, they cooled off in the sprinkler. Instead of visiting the butterfly garden, they watched moths dance in the lamplight. Instead of making laws, they made food for each other. Noodlefont in particular was famous for her pasta parties. She loved to mix whole bags of semolina flour with dozens of eggs, delighting her guests with noodles of all shapes and sizes. For special occasions, she gathered wild mushrooms to make her grandmother's secret sauce. One day, while Noodlefont was shopping for a party, a kangaroo blew his whistle. "You there, elephant! What are you doing with all those eggs and semolina flour?" Said Noodlefont, trying to stay calm. "I was thinking of a fresh batch of fettuccine. Maybe curly cavatappi would be nice, or I could stretch a tangle of tagliatelle." "Oh, no, you won't," snapped the kangaroo, pulling a law book from his pouch. "Elephants are no longer allowed to eat noodles. It says so right here. Noodles are for kangaroos. Elephants shall eat only sticks and branches." "Maybe you don't know me," said Noodlefont, "but I'm Noodlefont. I'm all about noodles." "You're an elephant," said Kangaroo. "If we catch you eating noodles, we will lock you in the zoo. Buy some acacia branches and don't even think about noodles." Walking home, Noodlefont couldn't help but think about noodles. She thought about their shapes and colors and all their slurpy sauces. When her friends arrived, Noodlefont had nothing to offer them. She tried pouring tomato sauce on the acacia branches, but they were not slippery. They were not slurpable. The thorns prickled and poked inside their bellies. As Noodlefont gazed at her tender belly button, its shape reminded her of something. A tortellino. All at once she had an idea, a fantastic idea, a revolutionary idea for a completely new kind of machine. Together, Noodlefont and her friends tapped and tinkered, singing as they worked. "Those kangaroos are kangarooed, making rules all about our food, telling us how we should think, what we can eat, and what to drink. When our new machine is done, we'll all eat pasta by the ton, 'cause noodles are for me's and you's, not just those bossy kangaroos." They called their machine the Fantastic Noodler. It was very complicated, but also very simple. With a few turns of the crank, it could turn anything into noodles. Noodlefont tossed in some pens. She turned the crank, and out tumbled a pile of overcooked penne. Too soggy. She knocked a dent into the side, and the next batch was perfectly al dente. They looked around the house and found more stuff to transform, cranking cans into cannelloni, pillows into ravioli, and radiators into radiatori. The noodles were slippery, slurpy, and scrumptious. It was a grand pasta party, the best one yet. That is until. Come out with your trunk up. The kangaroos tried Noodlefant in a kangaroo court. They said she had broken the laws. Noodlefant said the laws were already broken. She declared, the laws for elephants and shrews, tortoises, fruit bats, and gnus should be the same as those we use for all you wealthy kangaroos. Guilty, said the judge. As she was being led away, Noodlefant shouted, justice is for all of us, not just the bossiest. And though right now it sounds absurd, one day you'll want to eat your words. Each day a zookeeper brought Noodlefant a pile of thorny acacia branches, and each day she refused to eat them. She was on strike. Weeks passed and Noodlefant got thinner and thinner. When her friends visited, they worried about her health. They urged her to eat, but she was resolute. The kangaroo laws aren't fair, and everyone knows it. I'll starve before I eat a single thorn. Her friends called the kangaroos and wrote them letters. They protested outside the courthouse. Some kangaroos agreed the laws were wrong, but most didn't care. And so Noodlefant remained alone, stuck in the zoo. Her friends agreed they had to do something. One lonesome day, Noodlefant received a letter. Dear Noodlefant, we know you don't like acacia branches, but we wish you would try them tonight. Deep down, you just might find they're fantastic. Love, your friends. That evening, Noodlefant accepted the zookeeper's pile of thorny branches. She dug deep down with her trunk and found the fantastic noodler. For an appetizer, she cranked the letter into a steaming bowl of alphabet soup. Then Noodlefant clamped the machine to the bars of her cage. Slowly and quietly, she turned the crank. The iron bars collapsed into a pile of warm udon, which she scooped up in slippery slurps. She had never been so happy to see her friends. They decided to throw a pasta party, the like of which had never been seen. Noodlefant's friends spread the word. Everyone was welcome, so long as they brought something to share. As for Noodlefant, she knew the time had come to make something truly special. She ventured deep into the forest to snuffle out wild mushrooms for her grandmother's secret sauce. As the sun rose over Courthouse Square, the animals began to cook. Smells wafted all over the town. Sizzling onions mixed with simmering tomatoes, the tang of raw garlic blended with fresh basil and Parmesan cheese. Soon the guests began to arrive. Each animal brought something different to crank through the fantastic noodler. Together they turned corkscrews into cavatappi, flowers into fiore, and wheels into rotel. That is until. What do you think you're doing here? Welcome to our potluck, said Noodlefant. Our guests have all brought something to share. Do you have anything to offer? The kangaroo brandished his law book and began. The law is the law. It says right here, noodles are for kanga. What a thoughtful contribution, said Noodlefant. With a flick of her trunk, she whisked the law book from the kangaroo's paw and cranked it through the machine. Out came a piping hot slice of lasagna, covered in bubbling cheese. She topped it off with mushroom sauce and gave it to the kangaroo. It was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. The other kangaroos lined up to crank their laws through the fantastic noodler, turning out tray after tray of mushroom lasagna. The town celebrated long into the night, singing together, "When the laws are so unjust, misbehavior is a must. Together we will make new rules to share along with fresh noodles. 'Cause noodles are for me's and you's. We won't be locked up in the zoos. We'll slurp them down on avenues, at the beach and in canoes. Yes, noodles are for me's and you's. We'll even share with kangaroos." And that's the end of Noodle Font. This year, in honor of Dr. King, we are going to build our own wall of kindness and justice. An act of kindness is doing something to help others. An act of justice is what you saw Noodle Font do, and that's standing up for what is right. Each time you do an act of kindness or justice, write a sentence about your act on a brick. There's also a space to draw a picture, and the bricks look like this. So you'll circle whether you did an act of kindness or justice, and then you write a sentence about it. And here's where the space is to draw your picture, and then you can put your name and your teacher's name on it. Each grade level will be represented by a different color, and our classroom teachers will turn the bricks into the office, and Mrs. Burnt will build our wall of kindness and justice in the cafeteria. Extra bricks will be available in the office. I can't wait to read about all the acts of kindness and justice that take place at Traeger.